So as I said, there are many ways to recite the Quran, and these different ways to recite the Quran, we call them Qira'at and Riwayat. I'm going to explain all of this. So one of these differences, Barakallahu Fikum, you will hear it immediately. Everybody knows Surah Waylun li kulli humazatin lumaza? Okay. Like I would read, for example, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده. Okay. Now there's another way to read it, which would be ويل لكل همزة لمزة الذي جمع مالا وعدده يحسب أن ماله أخلده كلا. That's the same. لينبذن في الحطمة. And then وما أدريك ما الحطمة, or وما أدراك ما الحطمة, or وما أدراك ما الحطمة. You see this? أدرى أدرى أدري. You hear the difference? التي تطلع على, or التي تطلع على الأفئدة, or التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة إنها عليهم موصدة في عمد ممددة في عمد ممددة. Do you hear the differences? Okay. Same with the Fatiha. Listen. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين مالك يوم الدين. You heard the difference? Or الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. In the Qira'at from the 14, إياك يعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم with a صاد اهدنا الصراط المستقيم with a sin اهدنا الصراط المستقيم merged between sin and صاد صراط 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 الذين أنعمت عليهم الذين أنعمت عليهم الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين and so forth. You heard the differences? Yeah. Beginning of Alif Lam Mim, same. Alif Lam Mim, or you have Alif Lam Mim. You heard I stopped, right? That's another qira'ah. ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين, or فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة. You hear this? Instead of صلاة, I say صلاة. ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون. You heard this? So there are differences. And how did these differences come into existence? People are still reading it today. So when you go to YouTube, you will find, just look up yani Riwayat, watch Riwayat, Hafs and so forth. How did this happen? What is happening here? So this is what we are going to mention. When the Quran was revealed, yani it was written, or sorry, it was pronounced in the way that the people of Quraysh would pronounce it. Okay? So that would be the same thing. Allah Akbar, I think I will be trapped now.
No, it's not.
Okay. So for example, if I say, I am going to university, or the university, whatever. Okay? Now, people, they would write it in the same way, but they are going to pronounce it in a different way. Some are saying, I am going to university. Others say, I'm going to university. right? Now I know this, before I didn't, right? I just came here 2 years ago. So I'm going to university. And then some will say a Jamaican, some will say Jamaican, you see? So the way they pronounce words is different, but the way they, what? They write it, it's the same. So when the Quran was revealed, people were reading it or pronouncing it in the way of Quraysh. Is that clear? I am going to university. There was no university. There was also not I'm going. There was no I'm going. I'm going to university. There was no I'm going to uni. It was just I am going to university. You see? So when you see this, then you know that the way that the Arabs, exactly as people differ in England or the UK, they differ in the way in their pronunciation, not in their choice of words always. That was the same with the Arabs. So they would all be talking Arabic, but they would pronounce it in a different way. Like when you hear someone from Wales or you hear someone from Scotland, then sometimes you really need to, for myself at least, it's not always very clear because their accent is like different. People from Australia, they wouldn't say I'm 18, I don't know how they say it, 18 or whatever. So they pronounce it differently. This is what was going on with the Arabs as well. So we had in the time when the Quran was revealed, it was only in Mecca. So people now would only pronounce the Quran in one way. Do we understand it until now? No. So we had same words, but the pronunciation would be different. Quran is revealed, it would be in the light of the pronunciation of the people of Mecca. Then when the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina, then he saw that a lot of these Arab tribes found it very difficult to pronounce the Quran in the way of Quraysh. You see this? So like some people say, isn't it? In it. Some people say, I heard that. In the beginning when I heard in it, I didn't know what they meant. It's actually isn't it. So they were eating words. The Arabs used to do the same thing. But the difference is that it wasn't slang. It was true Arabic. You understand the difference? Like here I say in it. I'm not going to know when I have a faith meeting and I'm talking to the director. I'm not going to say in it. And we say, isn't it? Isn't this right, sir? You see? So when you look at this, then you understand that these different ways of pronouncing the Arabic language was not a difference between like the classical Arabic and slang. It was all classical Arabic. It was all true Arabic. So now when the Prophet ﷺ went from Quraysh or from Mecca to Medina, he saw that the Arabs had difficulty in pronouncing the words in the way that Quraysh would do. So now when the Prophet ﷺ saw this, he had a discussion with Jibreel in a sound hadith. You can find in Muslim of Imam Ahmed and others. That the Prophet ﷺ, that Jibreel said, ask your Lord to allow your ummah to recite the Quran in more than one harf, in more than one way to pronounce the Arabic language. So Allah allowed فَزَادَهُ وَاحِدًا. So Allah gave him one more way, allowed him one more way to pronounce it. Then it was, Jibreel said, ask him for more, ask him for more, ask him for more, until there were 7 dialects that were allowed. 7 dialects that were allowed. And another example to give you is the way that the Brits and the way that the Americans write liter or children, for example. They don't write it in the same way, isn't it? We pronounce it in the same way, but there are different ways, children or liter with the T first, and so anyway. Without an E or with an E, or you know what I mean. So now, when the Prophet ﷺ came there, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed him to do this in 7 different ways. Because they speak, because he said, Inna fihimul ajuz. There are elder people who were used and accustomed to a certain pronunciation of the Arabic language, which wouldn't allow them to change all of this. I mean, for generations, they were speaking Arabic in a certain way. For generations. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the Muslim Ummah to pronounce the Quran in different ways. What were the things the Arabs were differing about? Where's the...
It's behind you.
Can I use this?
Yeah.
So what...
Other side. Other way.
Other way? Mashallah, magic. So what were the things the Arabs used to differ about? The first thing would be the fath. Fath meaning the fatha sound. Now, some would have what we call a regular fath. Some would have taqleel. I'm going to explain all of this. Taqleel. And some would have imala. Imala. Okay? These were the ways that the Arabs used to differ. To give you an example, in the word at-Tawrah. Okay? So the normal fatha sound is a. Now I would say Tawrah. That's what we in Hafs do. Some Arabs used to bend the fatha sound. They wouldn't say ah, they would say a. So they would go Tawrah. You hear the difference? It's not Tawrah, it's Tawrah. The same thing, and the imala would be that you pronounce it, bending it between a fatha and a ya. Tawri. You hear this? Tawrah, Tawrah, Tawri. Humazeh. You see this? So this is the first thing where the Arabs used to differ. So this difference was allowed. Now, so they would, in many words, you will find that they say a instead of a, or they say a instead of a. Is that clear or not?
No.
This is not something difficult to understand, right? So you don't have to think too much. The Arabs just used to pronounce the fatha in a different way. Some used to say, bend it, some used to turn it into a E sound more than an A sound, and that was allowed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, is it clear or not?
Can you repeat all three? That's not here.
Okay, Fath, Tawrah, Taqleel, Tawrah, Ra, Ra, Imala, Tawri, Tawrah, A, E. Okay, so it's just actually if you would have this thing here, it would either go a bit more there or a bit more there. But it's all a fatha. Now, a and a and e. Okay? So that was the first difference between the Arabic, between the Arabs. Okay. I think it's clear for everybody, right? So the Arabs used to pronounce the fatha in a different way. That was the first difference. Okay? So, and that was the example I gave, for example, in the word adraka, same thing. You don't have to learn these examples, you just have to know that they differ in the what? In the fatha. So some would say, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ. That's the fatha. Some would say, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ. Did you hear the difference between? No. And some would say, وَمَا أَدْرِيكَ مَا هِيَ. أدراك أدراك أدريك. You see this? So these were these differences. Yes? No, it doesn't change anything. It's just the sound. Exactly like I said, the meaning doesn't change. If I were to say, they don't say this, I would say, going home or going home. It didn't change. The one is like in Inspector Clouseau, isn't it? Like, I'm going home and going home. So it doesn't change the meaning, it just changes the sound. Like if a French person were to talk English, it would sound entirely different. Maybe the way I am talking, you will notice that I have a Dutch dialect or whatever going on. So in brief, it doesn't change the meaning. It just changes the sound. Okay. The second one is merging. Merging. And the best example I can give is when we say, isn't it in it? Huh? Can you give me another example in English? I've got to go. I got to go. Huh? I've got to go. I got to go to uni. No? So university. Do you see that you are merging and taking away things? So they used to merge letters. For example, the example I gave was Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. No? And then we have, it's easier with the hand. Ar-Rahim, for example. No? And then I have Maliki. they would merge this, for example, instead of saying Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Malik Yawmiddin, they would say Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Malik Yawmiddin. You heard it? Merging. But they wouldn't do it just with the same letters. For example, Wasafati, Safati, sorry. And then we have Safa. Okay. Safa. They would merge this. Wasafa, Safa. You hear this? If Ja'a, they would merge it as well. If Ja'a, they would merge the Dhal into the Jim. They would say If Ja'a. You hear it? The Dhal is completely gone. If Ja'a, If Ja'a. And some would then also do the Fath. And they would say If Ja'a. You see? So why would they do this? Because they would eat letters, because it's easier. You know, in the desert it's very warm. You don't want to pronounce every letter. So some would just say If Ja'a. Now, Kalla bal rana, in house we say Kalla bal rana, the lamb goes away. So that would be the second difference between the Arabs. Some of them, if two letters would follow, they would just merge one letter into another letter. So that's the second example. You don't need to memorize the examples, I just want you to understand what's going on. So, the same which I said about Nam, tattali'u ala. Nam. So there's a ain, there's a ain. In Hafs we're going to say tattali'u ala al-af'ida. They would just make it one. Tattali' ala al-af'ida. Did you hear the difference? So some of the Arabs used to merge some letters in other letters. Okay? That was the second difference. The third difference was the meme al-jama', meaning meme of masculine plural. Some would always place a dhamma on the meme of a masculine plural. So antum, for example, is one of them. So that's a meme that shows us that it's what? That is masculine plural. So they would always put a dhamma on it. Like if I were to, does everybody have a Quran with him or her? On the phone, of course. Yeah. So if you take the first page of Surah Al-Baqarah on your phones then, my Shaykh would be really angry with me asking people to look into the Quran on their phones. Next time take a Quran with you.
Rejected one.
Can you? Yes, good. Okay, yes, beautiful. So the Prophet ﷺ, as I said, he went to Medina and he saw these differences. So now he knew that for people it was very difficult if you were always used to say A to turn it into A, you see? Or if you were used to merge one letter into another, then all of a sudden not to merge them. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw some of these differences, and we're going to mention some more, the second page please. After that one. Thank you. And other Arabs, as I said, they used to place a dhamma on every masculine meme. Microsoft. Okay. Thank you, that was a very good idea. Excuse me?
It was the blood.
Yes. Okay. Can everybody read it or not? There's like too much light, right?
No, it's game light.
Excuse me?
Yeah, game light.
Okay, I need this here. That. Khatam Allah here. Okay. So some of the Arabs, what did they used to do? Like you have ala qulubihim. You see the meme, right?
Yeah.
Sam'ihim. Same thing. You can keep it like this if you want. Then meme again. Meme again. So when we read it in our normal way, we would read ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. Now, if you read it, some of the Arabs, they always, when it was a meme, they would always put a dhamma on it. Now, they would just turn it into a dhamma. So what would they do? ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. You heard that? So this was also one of the differences between the Arabs. That's the way that they used to talk. Like if they used to talk with one another, it would be ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. So this was allowed because that's the way that they used to talk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed them to do this. Some, for example, used to do it always. Some would only do it if the mim al-jama' was followed by a hamza. Okay? So some would do it with every mim. You don't need to know this. I just want you to look at it and to see it. I don't want you to learn it. Now, just fath merging mim of plural jama'. If you want to learn it, you can. So some would not do it here and here. Why? Because it was not followed by a hamza. So here it will be, for example, سواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم, and so forth. Okay? So that was another difference. So they used to differ in what? In the mim al-jama', meaning if there was a mim at the end of a word, they would put a dhamma on it. Are you still with me?
Yes.
Okay. So that was the other difference. And here, remember we spoke about taqleel, about bending the hamza, the fatha sound? That would be here, for example. Now, I'm not going to explain you why they do it, because that is ilm al-qira'at. The reason here would be because after alif there is a letter with a kasra, so they would bend it. You don't need to know this. So now, they would say, وَعَلَىٰ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. In Hafs, I say أَبْصَارِهِمْ. They would say أَبْصَارِهِمْ. And some would say أَبْصِيرِهِمْ. You hear the difference? So where does that go back to? To the fath. ختم الله على قلوبهم وعلى سمعهم وعلى أبصارهم غشاوة. You hear that? Now, what I always say, if I were to read like this in a mosque, they would probably not kick me out. They would kick you out. Because for me, they would say, he's just a poor convert. He doesn't know yet. They would say, Skin, be patient with him. So if you would do it, you would be playing around. So, fath, merging, meme of the jama'. Okay? So now I want you to take this a bit higher on the same page. That would be the hamza. Now the hamza is this. This is one of the biggest differences. The Arabs, no, a bit higher please, still, sorry. Bas, yeah, okay. So the Arabs, they didn't like the hamza at all. Do you know why? Tell me why. Because it is a throat letter. Now, we have 6 throat letters, which is the hamza and the ha, the aynun and the ha, the ghaynun and the kha, are throat letters. The Arabs, the hamza is the letter which is the furthest away. Do you say furthest or farthest?
Furthest.
Furthest. Which is the furthest away from the mouth. We have hamza, ha, ghaynun, ha, ghaynun, kha. Okay? So they tried everything which was in their possibility to get rid of the hamza. For example, I'm going to write here. Ja'a ala. You see this? Ja'a ala. What is happening here? How many hamzas are there? 2 hamzas. So now they said, well, if 2 hamzas follow each other up, then we're just going to use one. Now, and we're just going to use one. So they would say, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَ آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ is how we read it in Hafs. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَ آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ النُّذُرُ. Now, some would read وَلَقَدْ جِيءَ آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ النُّذُرُ. Ja'ala. Did you see this?
Yes.
I didn't use two hamzas. I didn't say Ja'ala. I immediately went Ja'ala Fir'aun. You see that? So if there were two hamzas, they would just take one off, one away, gone. That is one example of the hamzas. So either it was removing one hamza, keeping one hamza. Sometimes they would actually change the second hamza, or they would change a hamza, sorry, into a letter. Where are we here? Oh, it should be higher. Oh no, okay. You see here is sufaha'u, and what is here? Ala. Some of them, if there would be a hamza with a dhamma, followed by a hamza with a fatha, they would change the hamza into waw. So they would then say كما آمن السفهاء ولا. Do you see this? They wouldn't say سفهاء ألا, they would say سفهاء ولا. Do you hear the difference or not? سفهاء ولا, and they wouldn't say سفهاء ألا. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Oh. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Repeat then.
Alhamdulillah.
So that would be another difference. So they would change the same thing with as-sama'i, sama'i aya. Now, they said if there was a hamza with a kasra followed by a hamza with a fatha, they would change it into a ya. So they would say, who wants to do it? So they wouldn't say min as-sama'i aya, they would say min as-sama'i yaya. Sama'iya instead of sama'i'a. These are some of the differences that the Arabs had, with regards to the way they would pronounce the Arabic language. Okay? So, and this is when we talk about qira'at, this is what we mean. We actually talk about the different ways that the Arabs would pronounce the Arabic written language. Okay? Or the different ways that they would pronounce Arabic words. And there are so many other differences which I do not want to mention now. Especially in the Hamza, there are so many different things. Like when, for example, for example, if there would be a Hamza with a sukoon, followed by a letter with a kasra, they would turn it into a ya. And they would not say dhi'b, they would say dhib. They wouldn't say bi'r, they would say bir. You see this? So the Arabs would just play with the Hamza, and because it was a difficult letter, because it's down in the throat, so they would just go what? They would just pronounce it in different ways. Is the main idea I want to share with you, not the technicalities of it, is the main idea clear to you or not?
Yes. No.
You don't have to say yes when it's no, because I don't mind repeating, even if just for one person, I don't mind. Was it clear for everybody what I'm trying to explain?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, yes.
One question. So in terms of the fatih, when the sound sounded a bit like qasra,
Yes.
why does that not then change the meaning of the word? If
Why
it's-
would it? Because it's the sound of the fatha which changes.
Yeah.
Was it what?
The word itself doesn't change.
No. No, and why it doesn't? It's not lahn al-jali, because before I said when the vowel changes. It is not, because the Prophet ﷺ allowed us to read it like that. Yes.
The case with the ja'a ala,
Yes.
say ji'a, it's ji'a majhul.
That is what, if you would turn it into a complete kasra, which isn't. We don't say ji'a, we say ji'a, j. We don't say ji.
Okay.
Now, if you would say ji'a, they came with,
Yeah.
it means, but it isn't.
Okay.
Like the same with insha'Allah, some would say insha'Allah, sha'Allah, like this. Okay? So these are some of the differences between these, between the ways that the Arabs used to pronounce the Arabic language.
Yeah, sure. Good question. So some dialects in the English language can be quite, for example, South African accent can be quite intimidating and so quite harsh, and some accents quite nice and happy.
Yes.
So for the Quran al-Kareem, are some dialects or Qira'at?
No.
Okay, so
They say actually that Hafs, and that is what we read, is the most difficult one. So you are all coping with the most difficult. And the reason why, and you have to write this down, why is Hafs spread as much? Hafs, why, and not the other Qira'at, is because when an empire rules, a Muslim empire, then three things are usually opposed upon people. It's the way they read the Quran, the aqidah they have, and the madhab they follow. You see? It is the aqidah they have. If it's Ash'ari, if it's something else, or Maturidi, whatever, or like in Saudi Arabia, Salafi thing. And so you have the madhab, you have the qira'ah, and you have what? The aqidah. And we should know that the Ottoman Empire only fell, it didn't fall. They made it fall. There's a difference. It fell, it didn't fall. And they made it fall, and it fell in 1923-24, isn't it? And they were actually ruling the Islamic world. Even Palestine was theirs. You see, Palestine was from the Ottoman Empire, and they allowed all people to live there, but they didn't sell their pieces of land. So when the Jewish population wanted to live there, they didn't say no. They said, you can come, but we don't sell the land. You see? But they allowed the people to come there. So anyway, and that eventually led to many problems later on, which we are not going to discuss here because it's not about geopolitics and everything. It's just about tajweed and qira'at. So it is the Ottoman Empire. What do they read? Hafs. And the Hafs is the closest to the European mathematical mind. Now, Hafs, with all the structure, Hamzat, every Hamza is there. In Hafs, and Hafs doesn't go only in one part of the Quran. Bismillahi majriha. That's the only bended fatha we have. And all the rest is everything. And all the Hamzas are there. In the majority of other qira'at, you will find either the bending of the fatha all the time, like in Al-Kisai, for example, or you will find playing around with the Hamza, like for example in Wash, for example, or you will find the merging, like in Susi. We're all going to mention what it means, what I'm saying now. So in all these qira'at, you have many things going on, but not in Hafs. Thanks to the Ottomans. My friends who came from Holland yesterday, Emre, Abdul Samad, Ali, and Sadi. So they drove, subhanAllah, 8 hours? Yes, 8 hours, to be able to join the classes, mashallah. So anyway, we continue. So Hafs is the most difficult one. And this is sometimes when people come to me, and they very often have a problem with the sound. Also, in some Asian countries, they have it very difficult to pronounce the A. They would more go O, Subhanallah, Sabah, instead of Suba, right? So you have them doing things. So actually the reason why these qira'at are there, these different ways to pronounce the Quran, is to make it easy upon each individual to read the Quran in a way that suits this person. But now because the majority of people, they don't learn qira'at, they don't know what to offer the students, so let us do Hafs. While Hafs might be the most difficult thing for that person. You see? So we are going to explain how it developed and what it turned into eventually. But this is what went on. So now, in the time of the Prophet, we agreed, they would, alayhi salatu wasalam, they would read the Quran in the dialect of the people of Quraysh. The dialect of the people of Quraysh wouldn't be Hafs that we read today. It would be either Qalun, or it would be Ibn Kathir or Abu Ja'far, according to some of my scholars. And the Mim al-Jama' would be there. Now, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. So that would be there. Now, and some other things, but that is one of the things that would be there. So it wouldn't be Hafs. But The Prophet ﷺ, he read in all these ways. So all the differences, and I just mentioned 4. There are so many differences. I just want you to understand the concept. So the Prophet ﷺ, now leaving Mecca with his dialect of Quraysh, or the way that Quraysh would pronounce the Arabic words, now saw a people who weren't used or accustomed to this pronunciation. So he lifted his hands to the sky and said, Ya Rabbi, allow these people to pronounce the Arabic words in the way they are used to for centuries, because otherwise they won't be able to read the Quran. It was facilitating, it was making it easier for people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed this. So now the companions, some of them read in one way, some in 2, some in 3, and so forth. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told them, and we see that at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Umar radiallahu anhu and also Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, they took someone to the Prophet alayhi salatu. They said, Ya Rasulullah, يقرأ القرآن, he reads the Quran in another way than you have taught me. So they didn't know. At the beginning it was new to them, because they were only accustomed to the way of Quraysh. So now they heard someone they didn't know read the Quran, for example, إِذَا جِيءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. What's that? Prophet ﷺ, look, he reads the Quran another way. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, don't differ about the Quran. أَنْتَ مُحْسِنٌ وَأَنْتَ مُحْسِنٌ. You read it correctly and you read it correctly. So now the companions understood that there were many different ways to pronounce the Quran. So now when the Prophet ﷺ died and physically left the face of the earth, he left behind him the companions. And the companions, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, the majority, they left. They went to Egypt, they went to Yemen, they went to Bahrain, they went to Sham, they went to Kufa, they went to Basra, they went to Iraq, Baghdad. They spread around the world. Each one of them taking the way that they were taught by the Prophet ﷺ in reciting the Quran with them. Are we still there? Yeah. So each companion leaves, one saying E, other one saying A, someone saying Idja'a, or another one saying Idja'a, alayhimu, alayhim, sirata, sirata, zirata. Everybody went. So now, when these companions, they had students. Many different students. Hundreds, if it were not thousands of students. Like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, so many different students. So they had all these students that took the Quran. But the thing was that not every student was as accurate as the other one. Do we agree? When you have 1,000 students, not everybody is as accurate in transmitting the knowledge of the Shaykh as the other. So there was a problem. Because how now would one know after the Tabi'een, yani after the students of the Sahaba, how would one now get to know what the correct pronunciation and what the correct rulings were of reciting the Quran? Because some of them were not very strong. I should say that the Arabic grammar, so Nahu, was the cause for it was many non-Arabs embracing Islam. Many non-Arabs, they became Muslim and they didn't know how to vowel the end of a word. Now, Ja'a Muhammadi, for example. Or Ja'a Muhammadi, Ra'aytu Muhammadu. Even now, the Arabs do it themselves, but anyway. Back in the days, the Arabs, they would pronounce it correctly, but now a lot of non-Arabs became Muslim, so they even the Arabs at the end of the day no longer knew how to pronounce the Arabic language correctly. So they wrote the Ilm al-Nahu. That was Sibawayh, a non-Arab, by the way, who was the biggest, greatest grammarian ever, and who started teaching and writing down this knowledge. Anyway, that was the same with the Quran. So many people now learning the Quran and not being very, very accurate in transmitting it. So this is when Abu Bakr ibn Mujahid, this name you have to know, Abu Bakr ibn Mujahid, and you're going to look up when he lived. So Abu Bakr ibn Mujahid said, now we are having a problem. Like, how are we now, when there are thousands of people transmitting the Quran and a certain reading of the Quran, yani, how are we going to ensure that it is correct, that it has been transmitted correctly and accurately, because at the end of the day, it is the Quran. What you need to know now is that the Orientalists will now attack the Muslims, and they say, look, if you doubted the way that the Quran was transmitted, no, we're not doubting about the amount of words, we're not doubting the content of the Quran, we were doubting the pronunciation. Now, the pronunciation. And we say that even the pronunciation was preserved by Allah. Now, it was even preserved by Allah and through these people of the Quran. So anyway, we're not talking about 400 and so many years. We're far close to the era of the Tabi'een. So now, there was Abu Bakr al-Mujahid said, look, I have some criteria. We need to stop this now. We need to have a look at the most authentic, trustworthy scholars in the Qira'at. So he chose 7 Qurra. How many? 7 Qurra. So here you have the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Quraysh, migrating to Medina, era of the Sahaba, era of the Tabi'een, era of writing down the Qira'at. Okay? So now, if we're going to look here, I want, voila, this one here. So, until number 7 are the ones that Abu Bakr Ibn Mujahid wrote down. He had criteria. Don't write down the names yet. I'm going to do like this now. So he said there are some criteria. First criteria is that this person has a sanad. So he wanted to choose the people through which the qira'ah of the Prophet ﷺ would reach the coming generations. Do we agree? Is that clear? So he said, I have criteria. First one is that this person has a direct sanad to Rasulullah ﷺ. Some of these qurra were told by Sahaba, some of them by Tabi'een, and some of them by the Atba' Tabi'een. So they were all very close to the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So he said that's one, a direct sanad to Rasulullah ﷺ. 2, it should be an accurate person, accurate in his hifd, that not one day he says this and the other day he says that he's consistent in his knowledge and he's passing on of knowledge. 3, that he had deen, not just intellectual baggage. It had to be someone strong in his religion. 4, is it 4 or 5? 4 is that he had to have strong students, not just someone with some vague students. No, a lot of students and strong students, and most likely his students would be ulama, which is the case with all the Qur'an. All their students were ulama. Like if you look at Nafi', Imam Malik was his student. Imam Malik, he read with Imam Nafi', and Nafi' read hadith with Malik. You see? So they were compatible, they were students and teachers at the same time. To continue, so these were these criteria of Ibn Mujahid. And he wrote down 7 names, which was Nafi', don't write the names behind it, was Abdullah ibn Kathir, Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, Ibn Amir al-Yahsubi, Asim al-Kisai, and Hamza. Okay, so these 7, this is what we call the 7 qira'at. 7 qira'at. Why do we call it qira'at? Qira'ah means recitation styles, right? 7 recitation methods or styles. And then we call, so he chose 7 people. And these qira'at, these ways of reciting, are attributed to these 7 people. But actually it's all from the Prophet ﷺ. But they were chosen to be the most accurate of people to pass on this kind of reciting the Quran. Okay, is it still clear for everybody? For whom is it not clear? Don't shy away if it's not clear. I don't want to continue if someone doesn't understand what I'm saying. And believe me, I'm trying to turn something very difficult into something very easy. You study in maybe 20 volumes until you get it. So I'm trying to press the lemon to get out that one drop that you need. So here, we are going to say the Qira'ah of Nafi', the Qira'ah of Ibn Kathir, the Qira'ah of Abu Amr, the Qira'ah of Ibn Amir, the Qira'ah of Asim, the Qira'ah of Al-Kisa'i, and the Qira'ah of Hamza. Okay? What do we mean? It's not their recitation. It existed in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but these 7 were chosen by whom? Ibn Mujahid. Ibn Mujahid to be the most accurate mashayikh who were transmitting this what? This recitation method or style. Okay, so now what do you think is the following problem? So we have these mashayikh, now we have them here. What is the next problem you think? What do you think is the next problem? Now to find the best students of these sheikhs. Because they again had thousands of students. So this is where Imam al-Shatibi comes in. You know, where Imam al-Shatibi, he's very known in the world of recitation styles. Now he wrote the Shatibiyya, and it is a poem of more than 1,000 verses where he explains the differences between these qira'at, and which is a poem which is studied by the scholars of qira'at. Okay, so we have Imam al-Shatibi. Imam al-Shatibi now, he looks at these 7 qurra and he says, okay, who are their most outstanding students? They were defined even before, but Imam al-Shatibi confirmed them. And then there were 2 students chosen for each qari. A qari is the one to whom the recitation style has been attributed. That is what we call a qari. The student that transmitted the qira'ah, we call a rawi. Okay? So the qari, as I said, these are the 7 chosen by Ibn Mujahid, Nafi', Abdullah ibn Kathir, and so forth. Then those who pass on the qira'ah, we call the rawi. And that which they pass on, we call riwayat. So we have a qari who passes on his qira'ah to his students, whom we call a rawi, who passes on a riwayah. Now here it becomes a bit complicated, but it's not. So we have each one of them, like we said, let us take an example of Hafs. No? So we have Asim. Okay? Asim has 2 students, which is Hafs on the one hand and Shu'bah on the other. Now, these 2 together, these 2 riwayat are the qira'ah of Asim. And these 2 students differ because Asim taught Hafs a certain way of reading, and he taught Shu'bah a certain way of reading. He had these 2 ways of reading that he passed on to many students, and they chose 2 of them. So when you have 2 riwayat, when you know Hafs and Shu'bah, then you have the qira'ah of Asim. So when people say, I do the qira'ah of Hafs, this is wrong. It's the riwayah of Hafs. It's the narration of Hafs of one of the 2 recitations of Asim. Are we still there? Who is not there? Ja, oké. Wat is de question? Maar kun je alsjeblieft mijn tape pakken, want ik kan niet. Ik hang hier vast. Die staat daar alsjeblieft. Sorry. Yes. What is not clear? Which part?
This last part of the riwayah.
Okay. Let us say you are a qari, one of the 7 who were chosen by Imam Ibn Mujahid. You are Asim. Okay? You have students. He is Hafs, one of your students. He is Shu'bah, one of your students. You have a lot of knowledge. You have many ways to teach recitation. One of these ways you teach to Hafs, and one of these ways you teach to Asim. They together, they carry your knowledge. Is it clear now? So he has a part of it, and you have a part of it. and they together are your qira'ah. And there are two rawis, two narrators of your recitation style. Is that clear? Okay. Was that clear for everybody? MashaAllah, on Saturday morning you're very courageous. All these technicalities. What's the time now, please?
9:25.
What?
9:25.
9:25. Okay, we have until what time?
35.
35. Okay, we have until 10 today, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is everybody still doing all right?
Hungry.
Yes, not too much information? No? Okay, then I will give more. Okay. So, it's now in a nutshell, I'm going to say it in a minute. In a minute. Now that you have this background information. Okay, listen to me. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Quran is revealed exactly as we have in it and ain't it. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was pronouncing the Arabic language in a certain way. When he moved to Medina, people used to pronounce the Arabic language in a different way, like people in Wales and people in Scotland. They pronounce English in a different way. So the Prophet ﷺ asks, Ya Rabbi, it is too difficult. These people have been talking in this way for so many decades or centuries. Please allow them to read the Quran with their accent, like with their accent of Wales or Scotland. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted, and everybody is allowed to read it with his accent. Khalas, until there. Now the Prophet ﷺ reads the Quran in all these ways to show the people there's nothing wrong with you guys, everything is okay, read it E, read it A, read it Ij, and so forth. Now the Sahaba, they hear it. Some of them only were taught it in one way. They leave the Mecca or Medina and they go to different parts of the world. They teach students until there are many students. Now people are worried, how are we going to preserve the Qira'ah? Well, let us choose let us choose scholars that have certain criteria that they need to have, and they chose 7 who were these people who would pass on these different ways of reading class. Now there were these 7 scholars, and for each one of them we chose 2 students. Done. That's it. Was that clear? Okay. There's nothing more to it. What are the questions that come to your mind now? What are the questions you have before we carry on? Yes.
If only 2 riwayas were chosen each time, was it possible that Asim had more riwayas that didn't get passed on?
We believe that we went by the 2 most accurate students. We know that there is some information that Asim had that might be given to other students, but they weren't as accurate, so we didn't go by it. But we will get later on, because there are more than 950 ways. There are more than 52 ways to read Hafs, which is of the tariqah of Jazariya, which we will get to. So there are more than 52 ways to read Hafs. Like if I would read, for example, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا. You hear this? I stop. This is what we call a sect. This is also from Hafs.
It has learn or teach all those 52 things that will limit the student.
Yes, we will get to that. Now, another way, usually when we have idgham with lam and ra, there would be idgham kamil bighayri gunna, right? So I would say فَمَا رَبُّكُمَا. But there's another way in Hafs where he does a gunna with the ra, and he makes it 2 counts. فَمَن رَبُّكُمَا. Did you hear that? فَمَن رَبُّكُمَا. The same with وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ. We have idgham 1 count in Hafs usually. Say وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ, right? But there's another way in Hafs where I say وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. You heard that? But this is not from the Shatibiyah. We will get to that. So in total, there are more than 950 ways to read the Quran. With small differences. Sometimes it might be one difference, but it's called a different way. Okay, we will get to that. I don't want to confuse you. Yeah.
In terms of sometimes in the ahruf and stuff, synonyms, does that come into the Qira'at?
Synonyms? What do you mean with
Like
synonyms?
words that are different but have the same
Yes,
meaning?
I'm going to get to that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, is that clear? So now for each one of these 7 qurra, there are 2 students. A student is called a riwayah. Okay? So now, how many riwayat are there when you have 7 qira'at? How many riwayat will it be? 14. because you have 7 qurra and each one of them has 2 students, so that makes it 14. Yeah. So you have 14 riwayat. And when you know 14 riwayat, you have 7 qira'at. Okay? They say that al-qari al-mubtadi, the beginning qari, is someone who knows between 1 or 2 qira'at, meaning 4 different ways of reading the Quran. That's a beginner in qira'at. Then you have the moderate, he's the one who knows 5, they say 4 qira'at. And then between 5 and 7, they call him al-qari al-muntahi. Yani the climax of the qurra. Qurra is the plural of qari. Okay? So it's only when you know 14 riwayat that you know 7 qira'at. So never say, I do qira'at hafs. It is riwayat hafs. You don't have 1 qira'ah. You have 1 qira'ah if you have hafs and shu'bah. So, and these ones that I wrote behind the first name are the students. So Nafi' was a qari, Wash was a rawi, sorry, and this should be qalun. And Wash and qalun, that's an L, not an R. And qalun would be his students. Abdullah ibn Kathir, al-Bazi and Qunbul would be his students. Abu Amr ibn al-Ala, his students would be Ad-Duri and As-Susi. Ibn Amir, his students would be Hisham and Ibn Zakwan. Asim, his students would be Hafs and Shu'bah. And Al-Kisa'i, his students would be Al-Layth and Ad-Duri. And Hamza, his students would be Khalaf ibn Hisham and Khalad. Okay? All these ways that you see are sometimes very different. Now, so meaning that every riwayah, every student narrates a way of reciting the Quran which might be very different to the other student. And these 2 students together form the qira'ah of their teacher. Okay?
Any differences introduced after the 2 students?
Excuse me?
Any differences introduced after 2 students?
Yes.
were in-
No.
valid?
Even the students, they had different ways of reading, which all go back to the qari, and this is what we are going to talk about now.
No, I mean Hafs and
Hafs and Shu'bah had students,
their students would be.
and their students would also have a portion of the reading of their shaykh. Yes, Allah Akbar. Yes.
Where did 8, 9, 10 come from?
We're not there yet. Okay, I'm going to do something. No, not now, because, yes.
Why does Hamza have 3 students and everybody else?
No, he didn't. Khalaf ibn Hisham is
Oh,
his
that's
name.
one name, okay.
Okay, so now what I want you to do, so we have the 7 qira'at. So I'm just going to write numbers that are the first 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do you agree? Okay. Each one, these are the qaris and these are the rawis. Okay. So each qari has 2 students, 2 rawis. Okay. How much is that? 14. If now each, so we have qari and rawi, and the next one is tariq. Tariq. Tariq meaning each rawi would then again have 2 students. No? So how many turuq are there then?
28. Okay, plus the original 14. So
Excuse me?
28.
28. So the qira'at with the riwayat and the turuq, you need to know 28 ways to be a master in the qira'at as-sab' as-sughra, the minor 7 qira'at. Where did these 2 come from? That's Imam Shatibi. So Imam Shatibi said, okay, he looked at the qaris, he looked at the rawis, and he said, now we need to lock it up, choose the 2 best students of the rawis, and then we're done. And this is what we call Tariq al-Shatibiyya, meaning Imam al-Shatibi, try to follow me carefully. Imam al-Shatibi is a person. Huh? He looked at the Rawis and he said, me now, I'm seeing so many students of these Rawis, 100 or so many years later, I want now to find the most authentic road in my time, authentic chain of narration to these Rawis. So he chose two ways from the time where he was living, two ways to each of these what? To each of these Rawis. And that eventually turned then into 28 ways, meaning chains of narration from Imam al-Shatibi to the Rawis. And that made it 28. And then he wrote a poem which we call الشاطبية. بدأت ببسم الله في النظم أولا تبارك رحمانا رحيما وموئلا وثنيت صلى الله ربيع على الرضا, and so forth. This is the beginning of his poem. So he wrote a poem where all these 28 differences are included in the poem. So what each Qari reads through which riwayah and which tariq. And this is what the beginner in the Qira'at learns. So now when people say, let us have a little tajweed night with some cupcakes. Cupcakes are always there. SubhanAllah, then really I get horrified. I say, we don't have the basic knowledge of a science. But yet here we are saying, oh, let's go there, read some Quran, listen to me, come and I will teach you, I will take you by the hand. This never happened in the past. That didn't exist. But today, subhanAllah, you should read the book which is called How the West Became Obsessed with Itself. Now, how the West became obsessed with itself, own self. And also The Shallows, what the internet is doing to our mind. You know, and all this like button thing effect on our brain and on the way we behave and on the way that we project ourselves. Another one would be Alone Together. Not Home Alone. Home Alone Together. Would be Alone Together, which is also a book you should read. You know, we Muslims, we should read these books wherein we can find these social problems. Another book very good for parents, Girls on the Edge and Boys Adrift. Yeah, Boys Adrift and Girls on the Edge by Dr. Saxon. He's a psychiatrist. It's a very good book, and it talks about the internet bubble and what it is doing to girls and to boys and so much more. So anyway, this here, the superficial society or skimming the surface of things has become the rule. And this is why knowledge became so cheap. You know, but when you ask someone, okay, you do Quran Tajweed, you know, so he might not even know what is Hafs. He would say Qira'at Hafs. Hafs is not Qira'at, Hafs is Riwayat. So now when you listen carefully, when you open your YouTube Qira'ah from Surah Al-Fatiha, and it's whole the Quran, you will hear Al-Husari reading, now, Hafs, where is he? Where's Hafs? He will say Hafs an Asim. He will say Riwayatu Hafs an Asim. Yani Hafs through Asim min tariq al-Shatibiyya. This is what they say, but we don't know what they mean. Hafs an Asim min tariq al-Shatibiyya. That's what they mean. Now, so the Shatibiyya are these 28 ways that you can read what? Hafs.
So the tariqa al-Muqawwal would be Shatibiyya.
Excuse me?
The tariqa?
Yeah, the tariqa, in this case, yes, because this is what we call the 7 minor qira'at. Okay? These are the ways that Imam al-Shatibi chose. Okay? Now, multiply this by 4. How much do we have?
56.
4 and here 4. 4 and 4. So we have 1 qari, 2 rawis, and each rawi has 4. How much do we have now? 56. So this would be through Ibn Jazari, but we're not going to talk about him today. That will take too much time. He's the one that added these three, and then he had different ways going to the 10 qurra. For each qira'ah, he would have 100 turuq. So there are 1,000, between 950 and 1,000 ways to read the 10 qira'at. And this is what we call al-qira'at al-kubra, the major qira'at. But believe me, if you have the minor qira'at, you're already a scholar. But if you go to the 10 qira'at al-kubra, then you are supposed to be, you have reached the climax in the ilm of qira'at. But already if you have 7, it's already very good. If you have the Shatibiyya, it's very good. But we will explain more on that next time about how Ibn Jazari came along, who these qurra were. Each one we will dedicate 7 minutes to know who they were, who their students were, and so much more. Bi-idhnillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we're done with the ilm al-qira'at. So you had an introduction to what the ilm al-qira'at really is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I have tried to make something very difficult as easy as I can. And it would be good to watch the recording, inshallah. Are there any questions? Yes.
So the 4 students, they come from Ibn Jazari.
Yes. The 4 come from Ibn Jazari. Yes. But we will talk about that later.
Is there someone that knows all 900?
Excuse me?
Is there someone that knows not all 900?
Yes, there are. Yes. Yes.
Are there other methodologies, like someone who had a different approach in Imam Shatibi, for example?
Yes, but the thing is that exactly as the case with the 4 madahib, we don't say that the truth in fiqh can't be found outside of the madahib. We don't say that everything which is outside of the 4 madahib is batil and is from shaitan. But as Ibn Rajab rahimahullah said, is the 4 madahib were needed to be able to create a life where people know what to rule by and go by. Imagine that you rule by something that everybody has his own understanding of what is halal and haram. Then the judge will say, you are divorced. You say, no, I'm not. He says, according to the 4 madhab, you're divorced. You say, no, according to Imam al-Awza'i, I'm not. According to Al-Hasan al-Basri, I'm not. You see? So Ibn Rajab said that the Ummah agreed upon the fact that the 4 madahib are necessary because they were followed the most, exactly as these qira'at. There were others apart from these 7 qurra that were chosen by Ibn Mujahid, right? But they say because they were the most outstanding scholars at that time, who had scholars who followed them, not 1, not 2, thousands. We say that it's necessary to close the doors to be able to rule. Otherwise, what is an Islamic court going to rule by? You see, and that's why in Morocco they rule by the Maliki fiqh. That is why in some other countries like Jordan they rule by the Shafi'i or Hanafi fiqh, to be able to have something one can refer to. But we don't say that what other scholars have said in the past is all wrong if it's not from the 4 madahib. But it's not something we will give a fatwa by, because unless in exceptional situations, because otherwise there will be chaos in the Muslim Ummah. So it is by necessity that we did this, not because it's the only right, opinion. Yes.
We call Turuq al-Shatibiyya. Jazariya is also Turuq or?
Jazariya is also Turuq, yes. Did you make coffee or tea for me?
Allahu Alam.
It's like your tea turned into coffee. Subhanallah. Incredible. Allah barik. Somebody else has some questions? Okay, what do you take away with yourself? Either impressions or either benefits or either... What do you take? This I'm going to do this every class, so I would like people to participate. Brothers and sisters alike. Like, share your thoughts. Okay? So, yes.
I'm excited. I just did an assembly with the children.
Yes.
There was nearly 70, 80 children in there. And the excitement I had from what I've heard.
Yes.
I had no intention of doing this course.
Really?
I'm just the admin.
Okay.
Just sorting the camera and stuff out.
Yes.
But I've told them I'm going to try and fail, but Inshallah. Honestly, the encouragement from the words we've heard and the rewards, if our sincerity is there,
No.
inshallah. Even if we try and fall,
Yes, exactly.
inshallah. So
No.
we are super excited.
MashaAllah, good. MashaAllah. Somebody else?
I think for me, when you said I remember the whole Quran it seemed like a mountain. When you narrowed it down to 2 verses, 3 verses, and take 9 years or whatever. That stood out because it makes it achievable.
Yes.
You
Yes. And you won't
know,
have
some
stress.
time frame, yeah.
You know, stress and Quran don't go together. Like sometimes people are stressed because they can't memorize the Quran. What of it is for Allah then? I can't. That means that there's something wrong. Memorizing Quran should make you happy, should bring you at rest, mashallah. Reciting Quran, memorizing, not like, if the moment you're like this, you're doing something wrong. It should never be a pressure, it should never be a burden, it should always be a relief. You know, something you like doing. Yeah. So yes, in 2 years, or I mean in 8 years, everybody here can be Hafid Kitabillah without any difficulty. 2 verses a day, 8 years, 9 months and something, and maybe 10 days. If then sometimes you do 3 instead of 2, khalas. I mean, that's very quick, you see. Because believe me, if you keep on thinking, I want to memorize, and do more, I will talk to you in 8 years, and you most likely wouldn't have added 1 single juice to your memorization. Just frustration, no memorization. Okay, yalla, bismillah, I want some feedback. Bismillah.